We've been building beams for our living room, so I thought I would do a quick video on how I'm assembling them, building them, because the last time we did beams, we got a lot of questions on how I actually build them. So these are paint grade, they're not stain grade, so the way I'm building them is if you're painting them. I'm using Select Pine. It has minimal knots, minimal defects, so it's a nice material to paint. You could also use Poplar, that's pretty good too, but the most cost-efficient thing other than MDF is pine. There's 3 pieces to each beam. You have your bottom and the 2 sides. The way that I do it, I keep the sides down about 1/4 inch from the bottom, so it shows a little shadow line like a reveal. I've marked that with a pencil on both the side pieces. I just run the pencil in my finger along the edge so that it's the same the whole way. To attach the bottom to the sides, I use pocket screws where I can. This beam is too narrow to be able to pocket screw both sides, so I'll pocket screw the one side with wood glue as well, and the other side I'll just use brad nails and wood glue. There's nothing wrong with using brad nails. I just would like to limit the amount of nail holes that I have to fill with wood filler prior to painting, so that's why I use the Kreg jig with the pocket screws. I'm spacing the screws about 16 inches apart. That way it pulls it all in nicely and it holds it together. The screws are really just acting as a clamp because once the wood glue does dry, it's just as strong as screws. Like you could literally take the screws out and it would stay. Don't do that though. Another method you could do if you didn't like that reveal line is you could do like a miter fold. So you would cut a 45-degree angle on both sides of these and the bottom of the sides, glue it up, fold them in. You can use a trick with painter's tape. The other option, if you were wanting to stain these beams rather than paint them, I would recommend using a dado blade on a table saw, and instead of just face screwing, like keeping these flush, you would gain out 3/4 of an inch here to let the bottom piece slide inside, because with stain you don't want any gaps, anything like that, because you'll see that with the stain. With the paint, it's a little more forgiving. You can use caulking, wood filler, but with stain grade, you want everything to fit super tight and perfect. So I would for sure dado that out and let it into the sides. That way, you know there's no separation with shrinkage or anything like that. The way that I have to build these beams is a little bit different because when they come down, they don't butt into the wall. We have a flat spot that's about 2.5, 3 feet, and then it starts to vault. So what I did was I shrunk these down flat to continue the flat spot on the bottom of the beam, and we're gonna put like a small piece of molding between the ceiling and the vault. It's hard to explain, but you'll get it when we're there. So yeah, typically these, you would have your sides cut the same angle top and bottom so that it butts into the wall or another beam. But in our case, I didn't do that, so you'll see why later. So here's my side piece ready. Like I said, I have the line marked about 1/4 inch from the bottom, and that's where I'll keep the edge of this. This is all pocket screwed, ready to go. I'm gonna apply some wood glue to the side, and then this is gonna sit on there like that. And as you go, you just move it to the line and then drive your screw in. If you've never used the pocket screws before, one tip I will give is the screws are on a little bit of an angle, so sometimes they will push past your line. Like if you hold it exactly on your line and you're not holding it tight enough, when you drive that screw, it can pull it over. So what I've seen a lot of people do is if you have a brad nailer or a pin nailer, they'll pin nail it in a few spots before they apply their screws just to keep it from moving, but you have to fill the holes. You don't want to go crazy with the glue because you don't want it to all squeeze out and make a mess. Just like that. Yeah, see, just a little bit of squeeze out, which is fine. You'll just hit that with a wet rag before it dries. Same thing on this side, but in reverse. We're going to be gluing the bottom and then putting the side on top, and we're going to be doing brad nails because there's no way for me to fit my drill in there to put the screws. When you're nailing this, keep in mind that your piece is sitting past the other one a little bit. So make sure your nails go straight, not an angle, because you don't want them to split out the bottom. This is the wood filler I'm using. It's white, it's interior, exterior. It's a really good one, so I highly recommend it. If you're painting, if you're staining, you're gonna wanna get a stainable wood filler that's close to the same species, like color, as the wood you're using. This is what I'm using. Goes on just like wood filler. The way we're fastening the beams is I nailed a 2x6 on the ceiling where the beams were gonna be located. The reason why I went with a 2x6 is because I can get 1x6 material, which is the same width as a 2x6, so you don't have to rip it down. You know it's gonna fit exactly nice and tight. And for the sides, we used 1x3, which is 3.5. So our ceiling beams are 3.5 by 5.5, and they fit perfectly over a 2x6. So you don't have to cut your material and rip it down, which is really nice. You can do it with 2x4, 2x6, 2x8, whatever size beam you want to do. You can get the corresponding pine material that'll work with that. As far as fastening the beams to the ceiling goes, you can use some glue, push them up, and then what I did was I brad nailed into the sides, and I'll just have to put a little wood filler over those. Brad nails are more than sufficient to hold the beams up, especially if you combine it with a little bit of glue or construction adhesive. So that's how I would recommend fastening the beams to the ceiling.